QTube, what's going on? You guys are tuned into another Q-Pill reaction, and in this dose right here, you guys see it. I'm going to be sharing my experience on the Whatever Pod in response to all the criticisms and critiques and misconceptions and negative comments that you hear on what they believe the Whatever Podcast is. But before we react to it, y'all already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share my content with your family, friends, colleagues, peers to make sure they get a dose of the Q-Pill as well. Because I don't be seeing too many people in my comments saying so-and-so sent me here. So y'all ain't sharing my shit the way I want y'all to. So how about y'all do that for me, please? I would greatly appreciate it. Because as far as I'm concerned, I think I'm a pretty dope content creator. And y'all watch my stuff. So y'all should be sharing it. It's only fair, right? Without further ado, let's get a dose of this shit. Now, as y'all know, I've been on the Whatever Pod 5 times in the past 2.5 months. Brian reached back out to me in probably early May after I came off the Valuetainment Pod down in Fort Lauderdale. You guys know Patrick, Bet David, PBD Podcast, Adam Size, Valuetainment Sizecast. After I returned from Fort Lauderdale doing that podcast, I got a DM from the Whatever Pod asking me if I wanted to be on the show. And I said, yeah, but it would take some time. So Brian repeatedly reached out to me from April up to my first appearance, which was back in, I want to say the end of September, beginning of October. That was my first appearance on the Whatever Pod. Had no idea what to expect. I typically don't get into those settings where we're sitting at a round table and we're debating topics, mostly because I'm a scientist and I believe in objective facts. I believe in research, data, empirical truths. And a lot of times people sit at these round tables and it's nothing but a round table full of opinions. And I really hate sitting around discussing opinions. Also, you never know how people are going to react to hearing things that they don't like in person. I can handle myself. Obviously, that's not the fear at all. But sometimes it can just be uncomfortable when people don't know who you are. If you say something that's too abrasive or too insensitive, they may have an adverse reaction and, it can be unpredictable. So that also was a skepticism of mine going into it. Like I said, I had no idea what to expect. And then when I referenced the media, reading up on the Whatever Podcast, seeing snippets, seeing clips of the negative criticisms and what everyone in these news media outlets had to say about it being misogynistic, about it being sexist, about it grabbing low-hanging fruit when it comes to the women that they bring on the podcast, them only selecting OnlyFans girls and sex workers and porn stars, etc. It's something that I had to take into consideration about, well, if I go on there, what is my mission? What is the objective? What am I on there to do? And am I going to be a valued voice on the podcast? So when I got out there, the experience, I have to say, it at first, I love the environment where it's located at in California. It's beautiful. It's in that Santa Barbara area, the Pacific Coast Highway. I love being out there. I love driving up and down Malibu from LA to Santa Monica to Malibu. Very, very beautiful area. I say I need to get a vacation spot out there because that's how beautiful it is. I want to get a vacation home out there eventually. And whenever I want to get away, I'll just go out there and I might hop on the pod when I'm out there, just hit Brian up. But, yeah, like I said, regarding negative criticisms in the media that I've seen things, such as individuals like this from watching a 15-second clip have such a powerful vitriol towards the Whatever Podcast and what it does.
This is why a lot of the clips from the show are popular, because it's like easy pickings. It's low-hanging fruit. It's like, yeah, you could sit there and you're talking to some bimbo, and it's not hard to embarrass her.
And you guys see, that was a clip from Matt Walsh of him criticizing the podcast. Now, in that clip, he was responding to something on the podcast where he actually agreed with it because it promoted the idea of keeping traditional marriage and family and gender roles going. So, of course, he was going to agree with that. But you guys hear there that he hinted at the fact that, you know, it's popular because it's low-hanging fruit. You bring on bimbos and you embarrass them. You make them look a certain way. And then there was another news outlet media guy. I don't know who this guy is, but this is what he said about the Whatever podcast.
Only thing I've seen in this Whatever podcast, it was like 20 seconds, was these guys who brought on women who didn't know what they were talking about and they made them look stupid. Because I'm pretty sure the Whatever podcast is despicable.
And you guys hear there the strong choice of words, despicable, you know. So these are people on the outside looking in who have never been on the Whatever podcast. Now me, I've been on there, as I said, I've been on there previously 5 times within the past 2.5 months because after my first appearance, Brian really liked what he heard from me and he really enjoys my content. He watches my content as well. So that has turned out to be a very, very strong business relationship between the two of us. And as I said, the podcast isn't what people make it out to be. He's a pretty good guy in terms of how he treats the girls, the hospitality he has, the conversations we have after the show, before the show, really have no issue with him. And you can see that if he's a genuine guy and he has a certain level of integrity, that it's not his prerogative to bring these girls on and just make them look foolish. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, like I said, I've been on there a couple times. So if you guys want to see, here's a couple clips of me cooking while I was on the Whatever pod.
Because all the research indicates that there are gender differences between our sexual behavior. That's why we're sexually dimorphic. First of all, you have paternity uncertainty, which is women who sleep around. There's less likelihood of them knowing who the father of their child is. And to a man, the ultimate disrespect is him raising a child that's not his. He's investing in resources to help the next man's offspring. That's extremely detrimental to his genetic legacy. The second thing is women, like I said, experience a lot more sexual regret. Women come with a lot more emotional baggage. They sleep with guys, they rack up bodies. I don't know if you guys just seen Brittany Renner, but Brittany Renner just said she had 35 bodies. When she said she had 35 bodies, she said a lot of them, half of them were one-night stands. And she said she wished they hadn't have been that way. So that tells you right there that a lot of times when women sleep with a man, they want that man to like them. They want something out of that man. Mm-hmm. So if you don't get it, you become bitter. You may regret it. It may affect you emotionally. It may damage you emotionally. That's another thing. So you carry that into the next relationship that you're in. So now those guys are wondering why you are the way that you are, when in reality it's just because you don't feel valued. You don't feel validated. You gave your body to a man who didn't appreciate you, who didn't give you what you want. You knew what you wanted out of it. You didn't get it. So you feel some type of way.
I agree with you.
The next thing is
like that.
The next thing is the orgasm gap. Men have an incentive to want to procreate because we orgasm 99% of the time when we have sex. The majority of women do not orgasm when they have sex. So what did you just do? You just wasted your time. Also, women describe sex is better when they like the guy. They're attracted to the guy.
Yes.
So if you sleep with a man that you don't know, you might feel some type of way, yucky, or I wish I hadn't done this. You experience sexual disgust. So there's differences. All the research aligns with what y'all call the double standard, and that's why I say it's not a double standard. It's different standards because the standard sexual behaviors y'all exhibit are not the same standard of sexual behaviors that men exhibit.
So that was a clip there. You guys can see me cooking as I'm explaining the psychological and biological differences in the genders when it comes to sexual behavior and why body count matter, which is one of the more popular topics that the podcast tends to go viral for regarding body count in this era of feminism and women empowerment and sexual liberation, as we constantly promote this idea that women can do what men can do in terms of sexual behavior and that sex is somehow, a socialization phenomenon as opposed to a biological one. And as you guys see, I'm spreading knowledge on the reality of it with the research, empirical data, and actual reality when you observe women and men and how they behave sexually, what aligns with reality. And if you ask me, that's more so what the podcast is about. It's about taking young women who have these fallacious ideas regarding gender differences, regarding male and female behavior, and simply giving them a reality check and explaining to them why those things are the way that they are and how it's not a matter of socialization, but there's a biological and a psychological component to it that they completely disregard or are ignorant to because they didn't pay attention in science class, or, you know, they didn't major in these things in college, or when they majored in it, they didn't pay attention. They didn't do a good job of retaining the information in which they were taught and applying it to real life situations, which is what I'm doing in this situation. I'm taking what I learned, what I know to be true, and spreading that knowledge because the objective is to teach women about the realities of dating that they clearly don't understand in this new Western dating climate. And that's the idea that Brian is trying to do. Of course, he was inspired by Fresh and Fit. He openly admits that. That's why the format is similar to Fresh and Fit, you know, the whole round table with the girls and us having conversations with girls, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this idea that, you know, it's to just tear down women and be misogynistic. Well, the truth is, reality is misogynistic if we being honest, because men and women are not equal. Men and women have advantages in men's favor and advantages in women's favor and disadvantages in men's favor and disadvantages in women's favor. But we only highlight and complain about when a disadvantage in a woman's favor is highlighted. I don't understand that. And that's what we simply aim to do when we come on. But as I said, very hospitable. I enjoy being on the podcast. Brian treats me like family, you know, during the holidays like Thanksgiving, even Christmas, you know, he reached out, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. He communicates thoroughly, effectively. He always is very well respectful to me. He's very well respectful to the girls when he's not pushed, when he's sitting there and we're talking, when the girls get there, he's very open. He's very direct, very friendly, very inviting, very warm. A lot of the times we've even went out to eat after the podcast. Me, Brian, some of the girls. Brian will cover the bill. Like, so it's crazy to me that there's this idea that we bring on women to try to make women look stupid, when in reality, women just say a lot of stupid things on their own. When in reality, women just say a lot of stupid things on their own. That's the reality. We don't have to make them look stupid. And he doesn't handpick or cherry pick a certain type of woman to come on the podcast, because if a woman says, you know, you guys only bring certain type of women on the podcast, you guys are just trying to pick on the bimbos, the airheads, the corn stars, the OnlyFans 304s, Brian will literally offer them an invitation to come on the podcast at that moment when they're criticizing the podcast. Now, they can accept it or they can reject it. But a lot of these women who believe that they're more equipped, more adept at being on a podcast like this and formulating good ideas and articulating their thoughts in an eloquent and intellectual manner, they have an opportunity to do that, but they reject it. So whose fault is it that the ones who actually want to come on to gain publicity and to gain exposure just happen to be the corn stars and the OnlyFans 304s because they want to promote the content that they do? And Brian allows them to do it. There's no point. I mean, that's a benefit to coming on the podcast, but to act as if these women are just selected like this is admissions for Harvard, where we do affirmative action and only OnlyFans 304s and corn stars are the ones that are admitted over the qualified intellectual women. That's simply not true. That's a misconception about the podcast. We can't help it if the women who come on are stupid. Or they say idiotic things. Women say idiotic things. Women are irrational creatures. They're emotional. Women say the stupidest shit because they don't care about science. They don't care about being objective. They don't care about data. They don't care about literature. And most of the women don't know it. So they're going to speak from bias, distorted, irrational perspectives on things that they dislike and disagree with because it's not advantageous to them. And that's what they're going to do. And men, being the logical, objective ones, at least we're supposed to be, we're there to check them and redirect their thinking and let them know, no, this is not true. What you believe is erroneous for this reason. That's the purpose that the podcast serves. This is another example of me also.
I am a certified relationship coach. So, and I have a huge clientele. So a lot of the women who come to me, these women come to me wondering why they aren't getting the dating outcomes that they want. And a lot of times it starts with them not being objective about their mate value, physical appearance, what they bring to the table, what they have to offer, who they are. And you have to remind them that these are the things that you woke up every day and told yourself in the mirror, daily affirmations. I'm a 10, I'm this, I'm going to manifest this, I'm going to attract the energy that I put out. All of that is bullshit. All of that is bullshit, because you live in a world to where someone has to pick you too. It's just not about what you believe about yourself. It's about the way the world sees you as well. And if you have the expectations of as a woman, I want to attract this type of guy, I think I'm on the level of this type of guy, and the reality is you're not, you're really going to end up heartbroken. I'm telling you, like, I deal with these women who are heartbroken. They're disappointed. They wanted to be wives. They wanted to be married. They wanted to have kids, not out of wedlock. They're single mothers. All types of women. They're just disappointed. They're heartbroken. And if you would have started being objective and being able to take some constructive criticism and being able to say, well, you know what? You're right. It took this long for me to come to the realization that I'm not the shit that I thought I was, or I hyped myself up to be, thinking that I was doing something, body positivity, or doing something for myself that was going to manifest what I wanted. I realized it didn't work like that, and now I'm here. And that's what I have to explain to them once they get there. So you ladies are young, you don't understand it, you don't see it. But if you continue to hold a certain attitude about yourself that is not aligned with reality, reality is going to show you what the fuck is up. And when it does, it's going to punch you in the face. And you're going to be so much more heartbroken and wish that you had just been more realistic and maybe took advantage of some of the opportunities that were presented to you in terms of dating, in terms of relationships with guys who could have been good partners, but because you felt that you were above him when you really weren't, by whatever metric you choose to use, now you're single. You're stuck. You're single. And you can't get what you want because you spent all your years that you should have been investing in those guys who are on your level, trying to get something better that you weren't really qualified for.
And there you guys hear me breaking it down, another teaching moment. And I understand another criticism that they give is a lot of the guys that they bring on, some of the guys seem like they get angry at the girls and they don't know how to talk to them. As you can see, when a lot of these clips and a lot of times that I've been on, the women were very respectful, very receptive to the information that I was giving them. And let's face it, a lot of the women were indeed attracted to me. I mean, I'm there, like I said, we meet before we get on camera and we go out after. A lot of these women were attracted to me. A lot of these women were interested in me romantically, sexually. And they talk about how I deliver things, how I explain things, how I convey things. And they say that, you know, I'm one of the better individuals who comes on the podcast who knows how to deliver a message and articulate it in a way where they can digest it and they can actually enjoy digesting it. There may be guys who come on the podcast and they sound angry and they sound like they're just there to take out their anger on the women, and they can get super abrasive and insensitive and disrespectful. The reason I don't do that is because I understand, one, that women are going to mirror your energy. So if I'm cool, calm, and collected while I'm delivering a message, they're going to be more cool, calm, and collected while they're receiving the message. That's psychology 101. Then another thing is, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm a marker for truth. I say I just deliver the messages that nature wrote. So unless I have a personal vendetta with any of these women, which I don't in any of these instances, there's no reason for me to get frustrated and upset and start yelling and start having this desire to just want to check them and put them in their place in an aggressive and disrespectful manner. That's not necessary. You can get through to women a lot of times just delivering shit the way that I deliver it. And as you can see, they're quiet, they're receptive, they listen. And as I said, also they're attracted to me, so that helps. I'm not going to pretend that I don't know that they're attracted to me, so that definitely helps. But I've had enough experience talking to women. You know, I'm not one of these individuals who decided I was going to level up in my 20s and turn into a guy that I've never been, who gets women now all of a sudden, or trying to get women. And I've been getting women. I've been getting women since grade school. I had female friends, you know, not female friends, but like lady friends who were attracted to me. I learned at a very, very early age. I'm talking 12, 13, how to spit game, how to attract women. The cutest girls in school were always attracted to me. I dated the cutest girls in my grade and the girls that everybody else wanted. And I was always more kind of the smooth, laid back, deliver a message. Now, there's a different side to me, you know, when a woman pisses me off. But like I said, that's when I know her personally. And I've told her several things over and over and over and over and over. And she's still doing the same thing. At that point, I snap, I get pissed off. But just talking to women like this, now it's no reason for me to get angry or upset because I'm used to it. I've been in these type of situations before all of this podcast and YouTube stuff started, before all these formats started. This is something that I've been doing for the longest, like since 13, 14, just around a whole bunch of girls, giggly, they like me, like I've been doing it. So it's like for me. But this is the reality of the Whatever Podcast. The Whatever Podcast is not misogynistic, it's realistic. The Whatever Podcast does not take women and try to make them look stupid. These women are already stupid themselves. They make themselves look stupid by the things that come out of their mouth because they're not well versed in the things that they talk about and they're not objective. And honestly, whether it's an OnlyFans 304 or some scientist from Harvard who's a woman, the rationale is going to typically be the same. I don't know where this idea came from that because a woman is has a certain level of educational attainment or a certain degree that she is going to somehow be more competent at explaining things that are not true. Because at the end of the day, what they're explaining isn't true. So that's what matters. And it's not just OnlyFans 304s and corn stars that Brian tries to bring on. As I explained earlier in the show, he tries to bring on all types of women. He offers all types of women the opportunity to come on. You guys see, and even Candace Owens had been on the show. So there's definitely opportunity and openings for women who think they're more well-versed on these topics to come on and make the men look stupid. They just can't because men are more realistic than women. That's just the bottom line. The Whatever Podcast is a good show. Like when I go there, I feel welcome. I feel at home. Brian makes me feel like I'm one of the better guests, one of the better voices. And honestly, that's why he keeps inviting me back on. So I'm satisfied with my experience with the Whatever Podcast. And you guys can expect to see me on a lot more in the future because that is a good business relationship. And there's a little bit of personal, there's a little bit of personal gratitude there as well because Brian looks out. He treats me well. So he's definitely somebody who has become a friend in the mix of our business. I greatly appreciate his confidence in me. As you guys see, I've been on by myself with the large platform that he has, 4 million subs. I only have 68,000 subs, and he's allowed me to carry the show at times where he gets up and walks away and allows me to carry the show and just sit there and educate the women on whatever I'm talking about. That's the amount of faith he has in me. And I always can appreciate when somebody has a certain level of faith in my ability to lead. I respect that in any man. Some of these platforms think they too big, they too high and mighty, and then they have a lot of stupidity on them. But I come well qualified. Well versed. I'm better than 99% of people when it comes to this dating talk, this attraction talk. That's what my degree is in. That's what I've been studying for a decade. Before these podcasts even hit the scene, I've been saying some of the things that y'all hear these people say, and I have a lot more, my understanding is a lot more comprehensive and nuanced and intricate than a lot of these other podcasts and podcasters who talk about these topics. So for him to see that and to bring me on a platform and allow me to be myself and allow me to be comfortable and allow me to speak uninterrupted and vouch for me and tell the other girls on the panel, don't interrupt me when I'm talking or defer to me and say, I'm going to defer to Q on this because Q knows this better than I do. He can explain it better than I do. I appreciate that. So a lot of the misconceptions and negative attention that the Whatever Podcast receives is simply not true. It's fallacy. People from the outside looking in are always going to criticize something on a 10-second clip because that's just how biased and irrational human beings are. We're presenting information. It can be framed a certain way. We take that frame and make a judgment on the entirety of what we're presented with based on that one snippet and determine we don't like it or it's bad, when in reality, it's a lot more beneficial and positive when you're actually in it and you can see what's going on behind the scenes and you actually meet some of the people and interact with some of the people and engage with some of the people. So that's it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope this has helped clear up some misconceptions or questions that you had about the Whatever podcast. And as I said, I'll be back on there plenty of times in the future, so you guys can look forward to seeing me on there. I look forward to you guys watching again in the future. I'm Suave Q, aka the Q Pill. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next dosage of Q Pill. Over and out.